My throat is a little bad, so I may cough a little between the class. Sorry about that. So this is a very sobering and inspiring passage in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's sobering because it is following the incident where Brahma, soon after his birth, gets attracted towards his daughter. It is a very shocking incident. Among all the crimes in the world, incest is where a parent figure has physical interaction with somebody who is a child figure. That is considered the most horrible. So, now how could Brahma have something like that? And yet, what is described thereafter is that he has recovered from it. That he is now carrying on this service, and Lord has empowered him to have the Vedas manifest through him. So that means whatever happened is in his rear view mirror. It's happened and it's over. It's not been held against him. So we will discuss today this topic of how to understand when good people do bad things. Normally we ask the opposite question, that why do bad things happen to good people? But while that is a difficult question to answer, that question, if bad things happening to good people, that is called as natural evil. Why does the world act in a way that bad things happen to us? Now somebody is a good person and suddenly they get an accident, they get cancer. So normally bad things that happen to good people, this is called as natural evil. That means why is nature created in such a way that bad things happen to good people? But when good people do bad things, that is called as moral evil. Moral evil means why are people made in such a way that they tend to do bad things? And we normally think that there are good people and there are bad people. So good people do good things and bad people do bad things. So, but when good people do bad things, that is extremely puzzling. So, now it is interesting that right at the beginning of creation, this is being talked about. And what is the reason for this? It is to understand and explain how when we act, there are many different factors based on which we act. So I talk of 4 factors using an acronym ICCT. So ICC is the Integrated Board, it has a television channel, so ICT will refer to that. But there are 4 factors. I is intention. C is conditioning. Second C is circumstance. And the last C is transcendence. So that means why might somebody do something bad? Say for example, we consider somebody to be a very honest and very fair person, and that might be in our temple management, that might be in politics, that might be in our workplace, because that person is very honest. And then we come to know that they did something very dishonest. We know somebody to be a very calm and composed and reasonable person, and then they become extremely angry. The person becomes not just angry but becomes vicious. They begin a mission to hurt someone. What kind of person is this? Did I misunderstand this person? Or is it that now, do I misunderstand this person or what exactly happened? It raises questions. So for us, also it happens sometimes. We often think of ourselves as a good person, but sometimes we end up doing bad things. So how do we understand what is the cause of a particular bad action that is done by someone? Now for that purpose, let's look at these 4 broad factors to try to understand what's happening. See, now basically the question comes up that when somebody has done a bad action, it can indicate 3 things. That actually this is their normal and it was conceived. That means this person was actually like that only, but they have concealed that person all this time. And now the real colors are coming out. Recently in India there's a big controversy over one big podcaster who spoke something very obscene. And he has invited very spiritual people, he seems to be interested in Dharma and Sattva and Atman. And then suddenly, when he spoke something so outrageous, the people are outraged with it. They said that all that he did till now was just a show. So that is a possibility. That the one is that the bad action was just a mask. And that mask has now come off. Or we are trying to understand the bad action cause. This is one extreme, so the normal is concealed. The other is that it is an exception. It is normally that person never behaves like this. And there were some, what they say, exigent circumstances. Exigent circumstances means that there were certain situations because of which that person did something. Normally they would not do it. So in our tradition also there is the idea of apad, that somebody may have to do something which is not normally done because of circumstances. So now if we consider these 2 factors, one is extremeness, that that person did something because of intention, then that would mean that that is a bad person. They what do the intention say now? All these kids are sitting here, and now suppose somebody comes running from you, and they want to come here quickly. So while running, they step their foot on somebody's body. Now normally, if you notice that we have stepped on somebody's foot or somebody's leg or somebody's body, it will say sorry, we touched their body, we touched our head. We'll apologize. So we can say that circumstantial, they just running along and they didn't notice that the crowd was so much that the only way to comment. But suppose, consider a situation where somebody is running and they see, okay, they stepped on someone's foot, and they look up and they see who it is. And then they raise their foot and deliberately bang on that person's foot harder. Now, the first stepping on somebody's foot might be accident, might be circumstantial. But the second is clearly intentional. So, when something is intentional, then that means that's a cruel act. That indicates cruelty. So what happens is that when somebody does something with knowing what they are doing, then that is far more serious because they want to do it. They want to do it. They're knowing they're doing it, they want to do it, they know what they're doing. So basically, let's look at another way. So among these, the intentional is the most serious. If somebody is intentionally, then it's the most serious problem. If it's circumstantial, then it is serious, but it is the least serious. Somebody said, who's normally a very polite person, we ask them something and they get like this. They just scream and go on around and say, what's wrong with you? And then we come to know that they just got some bad news. Maybe they got the news that their their parent has passed away and they are very shocked by that. So what happens is, then we should not take that action very seriously. So now, here, Brahmaji has actually acted in a very seriously wrong way. The action itself is extremely wrong. But was it intentional? Was it conditioning? Was it due to circumstance? Now, what is the meaning of it being transcendental? That means the Lord has inspired someone to do something. So Prabhupada says sometimes that, if for example, Parikshit Maharaj, apparently disrespecting Shri's father, Shaliji, was an arrangement of the Lord, so that the Bhagavatam would say. So then we should just see that as an action which we should not be judging ever. There's something bigger going on. So let's put this another way. Here is the soul. Now, the soul is surrounded by the mind. Mind, body, machine is there. Rather, the key. The soul is surrounded by the mind. And now, the mind, you could say the mind, body, machine is there. Let's put it mind. Then we could put it as, there is a body around it. And then the soul is situated in some circumstance. And above the circumstance is the Lord. Is, you can say, Krishna. So when somebody does an action, what we see is that person did the action. Now there are four possibilities that the action came from the person. The action came from the conditioning. The action came from the circumstance. And the action came by the arrangement of the mind. So, this is how, when somebody has done something, why exactly did they do it? It has come from the circumstances. The circumstances were so difficult, were so troublesome, that they did that action. The conditioning was so serious that they did that action. It was too strong. That they knew what they were doing, they desired to know what they did. And they just became like a puppet or an instrument for the Lord, and the Lord made them. So, depending on which of these four is the factor that is leading to a particular action, we have to consider. So, can you think of some action which is a bad action, but it is considered circumstantial, and the person is not considered to be responsible for it? It's not the right thing to do, not a good thing to do, but it's considered circumstantial. So, for example, when Sita speaks very harshly to Lakshmi, when Ram is abducted and Manisha imitates the voice of Ram and calls, at that time Sita thinks this is Ram. She tells Lakshmi to go. And when Lakshmi refuses to go, she pushes him, and then finally she says that actually you're not going because you want Ram to die. You always had an evil eye on me. And because of that evil eye, you were waiting for an opportunity that Ram would die and then you would have your way with me. But no, and I will never be touched by this. If Ram died, I will die with him. I will never submit to your evil design. Lakshman is never thought about exiting also. And when he hears this, it's extremely painful for him. But when Lakshman goes away from there, does Lakshman hold Sita responsible for that? Now later on when Sita is abducted, does Lakshman say, she spoke so delicately, serves the right, is what should have happened to her. It's a reaction to how she spoke. What does he say that? When finally when Sita is rescued, at that time Lakshman and Sita are making apology. Okay, I'm waiting for the apology. I do the apology for this. No, it is in circumstance. So even good people sometimes do bad things. The principle here is don't see intention in what is spoken intention. When somebody is speaking something intention, don't see intention in what is done or spoken intention. So, all of us, we sometimes do bad things. And generally speaking, the person is a good person. Don't harp on that bad thing. Don't keep reminding the person, oh, you spoke like that, you spoke like that, you spoke like that, you spoke like that. No, it is, don't see intention in what is spoken intention. So something that just because of circumstance, pressure is so much, and the person ends up doing something bad. So I was staying at one devotee's house in America, and he had brought his father also to visit him, and he was trying to get his father to get him a visa to locate in America. And he had noticed, and he also told me that I can see that my father is always very cold with me. I'm trying to serve him, I'm trying to please him, but he's always very cold. So I stayed in the home for a few days. And then his father and I, we had an interest in English literature. So we started talking about that, and that's it, the order happened. Dr. Shakespeare and Jane Austen and such authors. And then finally, I asked him about how his relationship with his son is. And he told that when his son was in 10th, in the 10th exam, just before the 10th exam, while in 10th, his mother, his wife had passed away, suddenly because of a certain disease. She had got cancer, very advanced. So he said after that, I tried to take care of my son. I did what I could. But then one day he was studying for his exam, and he had stayed awake late, and he told me that, please wake me up at this time. Now I woke him up, but I woke him once, twice, thrice, he didn't wake up. And when he didn't wake up, and I thought maybe he's very tired, anyway he's sleeping enough, he'll not be fresh for the exam. So I let him sleep. And finally he woke up 2.5 hours later, and he got so angry, and he screamed at me. He said, it would be better if instead of my mother you had died. So it just broke my heart from from that time. He was the only person I was looking for. He was my only son. How could he spoke like this? So then, at that time, I told his son, I said, why did you remember that? He said, I could have spoken that. He told me that actually after my mother had passed away, I could see that my father was very sad. And I thought that if I do well in my exams, then I will be able to please him. And I can bring some happiness into his life. And that's why I was very anxious to do well in that exam. And maybe because of that anxiety, he went and fell at his father's feet and asked for forgiveness. And they embraced each other. So what happened here was that something was spoken in tension. So, what son would want to have that kind of feeling towards one's father? But what is spoken intention, don't see intention. So what happens is sometimes some actions are just done because of circumstance. Now you can say even because of some circumstances, a person should never do something like this. And that is true. But still, none of us knows what he is going through. And therefore, life is extremely difficult. And everybody is carrying different burdens. And under the pressure of the burdens that they are carrying, what they may do, it's difficult to understand. So therefore, in general, when a normally good person does a bad thing, give them the benefit of the doubt. So in one sense, you could say that if you want to try to understand the bad action by a good person. So we could say, like every dial has a default and then it moves the other direction. So let our default be, the first default should be, look at the circumstance. Don't think this is the bad person. Look at the circumstance. So this is the first explanation to consider. So now, if the circumstance doesn't explain it, now when might the circumstance not explain it? Say for example, if we consider, we'll continue this topic tomorrow also, but I'm giving a few points of it. If we consider, for example, Ravan abducted Sita. Was that circumstantial? Why not? Because he didn't just happen to be in that circumstance. He created that circumstance. Isn't it? There is a circumstance that happened because the circumstance means that circumstances came upon the person. But so the other extreme is intention. So Ravan doing something is an intention. So Sita to Lakshman is circumstance. But Ravan with Sita is intention. If somebody is creating a particular circumstance to do a particular thing, that means that person is definitely not, it cannot be blamed in circumstance. That means say, if somebody happens to be in a particular room, somebody is a guest in our house, and that person happens to be in a room, and that room our safe is there, and the safe where we keep our money or our treasury, it happens to be open, and that person just takes something, and then we catch it, why did you do that? I invited you as a guest at my home. I say, actually I just got news that my daughter had fallen very sick, and I was desperately needing some money for an operation. And I saw this video, and I thought I'd just take it, and before you notice it, I bought something and make my money back. That's circumstance. But, if somebody deliberately became our friend, earned our trust, and then took from us the safety code of our sale, and then took the money from them, that is creating the circumstance. So, these two are very different. Is it circumstantial or is it intentional? Now, so we could say this should be the last explanation. This is look at this as the first explanation. Look at this as the last explanation. Don't assume that it is intentional. Now, when can we say that it is conditional? So conditional means what? Conditioning. Conditioning means that somebody doesn't want to do it, they know it is wrong, but they can't stop themselves from doing it. So it's almost like At this point, something is like a disease. If somebody is coughing, nobody wants to cough. Unless, of course, they want to hide something, they want to take some attention, something like that. Nobody wants to cough. Nobody coughs intentionally. So, at this type of conditioning, we see it to be like a disease. And now, so here the difference is that they don't want to do it, but still it is. If somebody has a conditioning for anger, whenever they are putting up the provoking circumstances, they start doing it. Now, as soon as they realize what has happened, they apologize, they say, no, I'm sorry. But it's just the way they are. So some people may have certain conditions. But it's not just the circumstance. So this is a little complicated case. How to deal with this. But we will come to this. Now, of course, the last factor, which is relatively rare, is that it is. So after first, this should be second, and now this is third. Now that it is transcendental, that is something which is extremely rare. Normally, us as devotees, we should not claim that some action is transcendental. That yes, there are Vaishnava Kriya Mantra, Vidyavana Bhujana. That is true. But there are limits to that. And those limits we cannot use it to justify any and everything. So, a person can do terrible wrong things and say wrong engagement. So, generally speaking, it's an exception. So, if somebody is a very advanced devotee and they have done something which just seems to be completely off kilter, and in the circumstances don't seem to be aware, okay, what the circumstances are? Then we can say there's something going on between this devotee and Krishna, and it's none of my business. I do not judge this devotee. However, we cannot take the transcendental explanation if that devotee's actions are affecting us directly or affecting someone we care for. Say, then we have to create a safe zone where that devotee does not harm other people. It's a little rare situation. So now in the case of Brahmaji, which was the factor over here? Among these four factors? Sorry? Transcendental. So was it the Lord's arrangement? Did the Lord want Brahmaji to do something like this? Well, maybe not. We don't know. But the point is that let's approach the other approach. Was it intentional? No. If something is intentional, then there's a pattern. They keep repeating it. So Brahma's action, we're trying to understand. Was it intentional? No. Now was it due to conditioning? Well, let's put it this way. It's like he does not have that condition in one sense. But conditioning can also be referred to. Prabhupada generally explains in this purport also that the illusory energy is so strong that sometimes even the best of people may end up doing bad things. So now we could call it as conditioning. Not so much the conditioning in terms of he having the conditioning, but rather he being in a particular place. So it's somewhere between, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. We don't know. Acharyas can give different explanations at different contexts. By circumstances, I think what say that there's a doctor who has gone to treat people in a pandemic, and then the doctor gets infected. So now the doctor is infected. You can't deny that. But do you want to blame the doctor? Of course not. And normally what happens is, this is the last 2 points I conclude. See, one problem with the infection idea, that the infection normally makes people passive. If somebody becomes infectious, then they get infection, they just lie on bed, they can't, they lose their energy. So this is the normal infection. But the infection of Maya it often makes us hyperactive. So when somebody is infected by lust or anger or greed, then they actually do more than what they normally do. So this is the infection. It's more like a mental health disease. Like some people are mentally disturbed, and because of some problem, if there are some drugs, and you take those drugs, people just they get an extraordinary level of energy. And nowadays there are designer clothes. Now in America there are designer drugs being made. Designer drugs means what? That those drugs, like normal drugs, little bit intoxicating, little bit high feeling. But those drugs, just extremely high feeling. Very quickly, very small dosage. But then it can be deadly if things go wrong. So the infection of Maya doesn't seem like an infection because the person is not inactive. The person is hyperactive. If we hear that somebody is very sick, and we see that person running around and talking loudly and doing many acting, it doesn't sound like a sick person, isn't it? So that's why it's difficult to see the actions done by a person driven by lust, anger or greed as an infection. But still, it is an infection. And the key point is that how long does the infection last? Are they aggravating the infection or are they trying to counter the infection? So that will be the last point. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.17, Krishna says that Apo Yamana Bachala Vishwala Samudramapa Prakshan Yadva Kamaya Pravishan Sarve Sashanti Mahnati Nakama Kami. Nakama Kami means, it's a very interesting compound phrase. Don't be a desirer of desire. Don't be a desirer of desire. So what does it mean, a desire of desire? No, calm. So this desire refers to that which comes inside of us. So this is the soul, this is the proposition. So desire can mean proposition. Proposition is outside the life, come buy this, eat this, watch this. That's calm desire for you. And the second desire is intention. So for us, the proposition may come. Prabhupada says the desire may come, but the inclination to fulfill the desire is no longer there. That's what Prabhupada talks about in that point, 270-75. So for all of us, how do we ensure that when the proposition comes, the intention does not come? That means that some thought pops up, some desire pops up inside us, some things we see. It could be circumstances, conditioning, but the intention does not come. That will happen when we have a much stronger intention for something else. If our intention to serve Krishna, our intention to practice bhakti is very strong, then even if the proposition comes, the intention does not come. So the prostitute came before Haridas Thakur and she offered herself to him. The proposition came with that intention that came. Why? Because he had a strong intention to serve Krishna. So here the fact that Brahmaji is now manifesting the Vedas through himself, through him, indicates that his intention to serve is so strong. The Lord has reciprocated his intention and he is continuing his service. So whatever was wrong is now in the rearview mirror. It's in the past and he has picked himself up and he has moved on in his life. By keeping our intention strong, we all also can, whatever has been done by someone, whatever has been done by us, we put it aside and move on. Abhishek Suduracharo. Suduracharo is there, but Bhajate Ma Ananya. This intention is strong. Sadhureva Samantavya Samyak Visito. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Mainly we discussed 3 points. Our topic was that when good people do bad things, how do we make sense of that? So we could discuss an example of Brahmaji over here. That example also. So I said that what was the acronym? ICC. The I was intention. That is, they did this because they wanted to do it. And this is the worst kind of situation. C is conditioning. They didn't want to do it, but their conditioning impelled them to do it. Next is circumstance. That means it is largely external. And T is consequence. That is the Lord made an arrangement for them to do. So it's like when somebody does something and so where is that particular action coming from? So now they are in a particular circumstance. And above that is the Lord. So is the action, when they are doing a particular action, the origin could be, is their intention, is the conditioning, is the circumstance, or it is the some divine arrangement. So we need to see which one it is. So now, if it is circumstantial, then we need it's the least damaging. So overall, we try to start with, when we try to look at a circumstance, we try to look for this as the first explanation, second, and then third. Give people the benefit of the doubt, and then, as far as dealing with such situation is concerned, I talk about first is that we overlook that you give benefit of the doubt to the person, and then lastly, if somebody is doing something like that, the way to overcome that is that calm. So don't jump to conclusions. Give the benefit of the doubt. So start with the least negative explanation. Give benefit of the doubt, and then cultivate a stronger intention. And if you do this, then whatever bad was done, why did that person do it? We don't know. But if there is higher intention being cultivated, then nakami, that person will go beyond that particular chapter in their life. Cultivate or strengthen a higher intention. So give benefit of the doubt is for others. In some ways not like that. Cultivate higher intention is for us if we have done something like that. Others can also apply it, but in this way we can respond in an appropriate way and move ahead in our lives. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there a question or comment? So, C means the person will be bad repeatedly. Yeah, so that it is either intention or it is conditioning. So tomorrow morning I talk more about the conditioning part and we'll discuss more about it. So certainly at that particular time, the person is doing something repeatedly wrong. Then some quantities have to be created. So that, say, some devotees, some person for example, they have excessive attraction for Krishna in the form of prasad. And if that person is very charged of Mahaprasad, and then all the Mahaprasad immediately disappears. Now, one day it disappears, understand, but every day it is disappearing and something is off over. Then does that mean if a devotee is taking all the prasad which is supposed to distribute to other guests? Is that a bad thing? It is definitely not a good thing. Does that make that person bad devotee? Maybe not a bad devotee. But maybe that person should not be Mahaprasad recharged. If somebody has anger issues, he just get angry very quickly. Now, that does not necessarily make that person a bad person. But if somebody has a short temper, maybe they should not be put in charge of devotee care. In the group. Sometimes we have to change circumstances to protect the person. So sometimes if you condition change the circumstances, then the person doesn't get that what you do, likely they overcome the condition. But sometimes you change the circumstances for that person, but they deliberately try to go into the previous circumstances. Then we can say it is much more probable. So tomorrow I discuss the Ajami pastime in the reason where this particular action falls in this particular way. This is more. Yes, sir.
So you have explained the example of Maharashtra, and he has good, has higher education service. When proposition came, so we backed up. So my question is that we see that proposition comes from inner side, from inner self. So how do we understand that body like proposition coming from inside of also have intention also inside.
So that is where some kind of commitment is very helpful. So, say the proposition comes that I will eat all this food, but if I have invited some guests to my home and I'm going to offer food to them, then what happens is that culture is there, a sense of responsibility is there, commitment is there. So one of the best ways to prevent the proposition from becoming a disruption of our life is to have commitments. Like suppose we have a whole weekend and nothing to do. Then I'm just saying, I don't go, I have a class, we'll sleep a little bit. And we'll end up sleeping for a long time. So what happens? The proposition is coming, but if there is no commitment, which enhances commitment helps us to not take the propositions of the mind too seriously. If there is no commitment, then there is no reason to say no to the mind. It's like say, some friend invites us to go somewhere. We don't want to go there, but it's difficult to say no to someone. Like at that time, we already had a meeting planned with somebody else. Actually, I have to go to this person, that's why I can't come. It's easier. So that's why if you have something to say yes to already locked in, then it's easier to say no to the proposition.
Regarding conditioning, when we see that someone is acting out of conditioning, as we have seen in the past, repeated pattern of a behavior or a speech which might be disturbing the other body. So how do we see that?
I'll talk about conditioning tomorrow, elaborate, because it's a whole subject. But briefly, I think that devotee needs to be given a space where they can continue their service, but at the same time, it should not be causing disruption to others. So how to do that? That is the resourcefulness of those in charge. Thank you very much. Hello.